The Supreme Court just delivered a massive ruling that's going to impact every single gun owner in America. This wasn't just another case that came and went. This was a 6-3 decision that's literally rewriting how gun laws work across the entire country. We're talking about changes to permits, training rules, background checks, and constitutional carry. Everything is shifting right now, and if you own a firearm or you're thinking about getting one, you need to understand what just happened, because these changes are already taking effect. Before we get into the details, I need you to do something really quick. Smash that like button right now if you care about protecting your Second Amendment rights. It only takes a second, and it makes a huge difference in getting this information out to more people who need it. Also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates on your rights. Trust me, you're going to want to stay informed about this stuff. Let's start with the decision itself. The Supreme Court didn't just settle one dispute and move on. They made a ruling that's sending shockwaves through every state in America. The case focused on whether states have the right to make law-abiding citizens jump through endless hoops just to get a permit. Should you have to prove you need a gun before you can carry one? Should you have to wait months and months for approval? The court looked at all of this and said absolutely not. They took the Bruin decision from 2022 and made it even stronger. This new ruling is now the foundation that every future Second Amendment case will be built on. What the court basically said is that constitutional carry should be the starting point. If any law forces you to prove why you need to carry a gun, that law is now on extremely shaky ground. The judges went back to history and tradition to make their decision. They're saying that states can't pile on requirements and bureaucratic red tape when it comes to a fundamental right. This ruling is a reminder to every state government out there that the Second Amendment isn't some lesser right. It stands equal to your freedom of speech, your protection against unreasonable searches, and every other right in the Constitution. Now let's talk about what this means for May-issue permits, because this is huge. Before the Bruin case, states like California, New York, and New Jersey operated under what's called a May-issue system. Here's how that worked. You could pass your background check. You could complete all the required training. You could do everything they asked. And they could still turn around and deny your permit for basically no reason at all. They had complete discretion. The Supreme Court has now said that this kind of subjective decision-making has absolutely no place when it comes to fundamental rights. New York had what they called a good cause standard. That's been struck down. California had a system where sheriffs could approve or deny permits based on their personal judgment. That's now being challenged in courts everywhere. Hawaii and Maryland had incredibly restrictive systems. Those are under direct legal attack right now. The courts are now demanding that any restrictions need to match up with historical examples from when the Constitution was written. They're not interested in modern political opinions or what lawmakers think is best today. States have a choice now. They can either change their laws to match this ruling, or they can watch those laws get torn apart in federal court. For gun owners, this means your rights don't disappear just because you crossed into a different county or a different state. One of the sneakiest tactics that anti-gun states have used for years is something called permit delays. Some places take 3 months to process a carry permit. Some take 6 months. Some take a full year or even longer. That's not about safety or proper enforcement. That's pure obstruction. This new Supreme Court ruling challenges those timelines by making it clear that the right to carry is immediate. You don't have to wait 8 months to exercise your freedom of speech, right? So why should you have to wait that long to defend yourself and your family? Courts across the country are now reviewing these permit processing times and treating them as potential constitutional violations. The idea is simple. If you're denying someone timely access to their rights, you're placing an unconstitutional burden on them. Lawsuits have already been filed in states like Illinois and Massachusetts. People are asking for fast-track injunctions to force states to comply with this new standard. Time has become the enemy of restrictive gun laws. If a state keeps dragging its feet on permits, federal courts are ready to step in and shut that down. Let's move on to mandatory training requirements, because this is another area that's being turned upside down. Gun control advocates have long pushed for extensive training mandates as a way to limit who can carry. But the Supreme Court didn't just focus on permits in this ruling. They also looked at whether states can require expensive classes, complicated certifications, or lengthy training programs as a condition for carrying a gun. The court's position is clear. If something wasn't historically required back when the Constitution was written, then it's constitutionally suspect today. Courts are now testing modern training requirements against historical practices. They're striking down laws that have no equivalent from the 18th or 19th century. This is affecting states like Maryland, California, and Connecticut that have strict training regimes in place. Lawsuits are challenging the costs of these programs, the wait times involved, and how complicated the certification process is. Now, this doesn't mean training itself is bad. Training is actually a great idea. But what it does mean is that the government can't use training as a wall to keep you from exercising your rights. They can't charge you $500 or more and make you wait 6 weeks just to get permission to carry. Background checks are another major piece of this puzzle. The court's ruling didn't eliminate background checks, but it sent a very strong warning. Background checks need to be fast, fair, and consistent. When delays happen because of errors in the NICS system, or because of pending statuses that drag on forever, or because of state-level bureaucracy, those delays now risk violating the requirement for timely access to your rights. This changes where the burden of proof lies. You shouldn't have to prove you're innocent. The system needs to prove you're ineligible, and it needs to do it quickly. NICS checks that stay pending beyond 3 business days are now under legal scrutiny. States that add extra layers of background checks on top of the federal system are facing constitutional challenges. Gun stores that put holds on purchases based on vague discretionary concerns might be acting illegally. Systems like California's 10-day waiting period and Washington's permit to purchase delays are being reevaluated under this new legal standard. The message from the Supreme Court is crystal clear. Background checks need to be efficient tools, not punishment. If the system can't give you results fast, then it has no business acting as a gatekeeper for your constitutional rights. For years now, states have required extra layers of mandatory training before they'll give you a carry permit. But after this Supreme Court ruling, that entire concept is facing serious legal trouble. The court signaled that prerequisites can't be overly burdensome, even if politicians frame them as safety measures. When requirements are applied too broadly, they become unconstitutional. States like Maryland and New York require up to 16 hours of training. Those requirements might get ruled excessive. California has a complicated multi-step process that could face a major rollback. Some states might end up shifting from required training to recommended training instead. The core principle here is that your rights don't depend on jumping through hoops. The government can't create arbitrary barriers between you and a constitutional right. That's the real takeaway, and it's already causing major changes in state legislatures across America. Now, this ruling doesn't get rid of background checks entirely, but it does force courts to ask tough questions. Are universal background checks historically justified? What about waiting periods? What about may-issue policies? Some of the justices pointed out that the Founding Fathers didn't impose preemptive screening before people could exercise their rights. Background checks that delay gun purchases for weeks or months might now be challenged under this new legal standard. Even federal waiting periods could face constitutional review if they're being abused. The door is wide open for lawsuits arguing that current systems aren't really about safety at all. They're about slow-walking denials. Under this new decision, the government is going to need strong historical evidence to keep these policies in place. This ruling has also triggered a fresh debate about federal versus state power. When state gun laws contradict the Second Amendment, who wins? The Supreme Court made it absolutely clear that constitutional rights don't stop when you cross state lines. States that keep passing restrictive laws are now at serious risk of swift federal judicial intervention. Even federal policies are being examined under this same originalist standard. Expect to see more and more cases getting fast-tracked to the Supreme Court, and this decision will be used as the legal benchmark for all of them. The balance of power is shifting in real time. This isn't just theory. These are actual cases hitting the courts every single week. You might remember the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen case. That was already considered a landmark decision. Well, this new ruling builds on Bruen and makes it even stronger. Bruin said that the government has to prove a law aligns with historical tradition. This new decision strengthens that standard and makes it much harder for states to just invent modern rules out of thin air. Laws now have to survive strict scrutiny when examined through the lens of original constitutional intent. The Bruin test isn't just guidance anymore. It's become judicial armor. Every single case from this point forward will be judged using this precedent. Any state law that can't meet this standard is living on borrowed time. So what happens next? This isn't just a legal moment. This is a complete cultural reset. Gun owners, lawmakers, and activists are all recalculating their strategies. Lawsuits are being filed all across the country using this ruling as their foundation. States that support gun rights are expanding constitutional carry. States that oppose gun rights are scrambling to figure out their next move. Everyone is watching closely to see what the ATF does next, especially after some of their recent actions that many people saw as overreach. Expect to see new bills introduced. Expect to see new legal challenges. Expect a wave of transformation in both conservative and liberal states. The Supreme Court didn't just hand down a ruling. They started what many are calling a constitutional revolution. The Supreme Court has made their position loud and clear. Your rights don't sit around waiting for permission slips from the government. The burden is now on the government to prove its case, not on you to justify your rights. For years and years, gun owners have been playing defense, constantly fighting to protect what the Constitution already guarantees. But after this ruling, the tide is turning. The legal landscape has fundamentally changed. States can no longer hide behind vague standards and bureaucratic delays. They can no longer use subjective discretion to decide who gets to exercise their Second Amendment rights. The framework that many restrictive states built over decades is crumbling, and it's happening fast. This fight is far from over. There will be more legal battles. There will be more challenges. There will be states that try to find workarounds or push back against this ruling. But the foundation has been laid. The Supreme Court has drawn a line in the sand and made it clear where they stand. For anyone who believes in constitutional rights and the principles this country was founded on, this is a significant moment. The coming months and years will show us exactly how far this ruling reaches and how it reshapes gun laws across all 50 states. The conversation has changed. The legal standards have changed. And for millions of Americans, the ability to exercise their Second Amendment rights just got a whole lot stronger. If you found this information valuable, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It helps get this critical information in front of more gun owners who need to know about these changes. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on your rights. Share this video with every gun owner you know because this information is too important to keep to yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.